new ESPN 850 900.
10:32 back on the Sports Fix. You're listening to ESPN Radio and ESPNGo1.com. I'm Adam Reardon. He's Chris Doring. Scott Brantley with the next couple of days off. You're off tomorrow as well, right? You can travel.
I'm traveling, actually. My flight leaves at 6 a.m. I'll be in Birmingham and then making that drive over to Tuscaloosa to meet with Nick Saban.
Like, if you, I feel like if I would run into a guy like Nick Saban,
you gotta bow down and kiss the rings and stuff.
Well, no, I just feel like, just even being around him, I would feel much smarter football-wise than I really am, just because you bask in the all-knowing aura of Nick Saban.
Yeah, that dude is intense, man.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, you had a chance to sit with him.
Yeah, we sat with him a couple years ago. Looking forward to getting over there and sitting down with he and Kirby Smart and learning a little bit about what the Tide got going.
All right, let's learn a little bit about what the Miami Hurricanes have going on. Besides the victory this past weekend, and a win's a win in college football, you certainly take them. But they had to work a little bit up there in Chestnut Hill. We'll talk a little Miami Hurricane football with Danny Money of CanesInSight.com, the best in the business covering the University of Miami. Danny, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing quite well. Now, I'll handle all the I'll start with the negative stuff. I don't want people to think I'm just some Miami Hurricane homer. So I'll start with something I watched in the game. And as a college football fan, when you see this, normally it turns out poorly. Defensive line play for the University of Miami. When a quarterback throws for 441 yards, and you can't even really remember off the top of your head any time where he was truly pressured and or hit or sacked, to me, maybe a bit of a warning flag for Miami Hurricane fans that their D-line is going to need to bring some heat to get any sort of pressure on quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, and this is something that we've talked about all summer. This is the biggest weakness on the team right now is that front four. It's been that way, unfortunately, for the past 4 or 5 years. It's become kind of a regular occurrence for these really average, not renowned quarterbacks to put up career days against the University of Miami, and most of that directly relates to the quality of the front four. Again, not a surprise. A ton of players played. I believe about 10 defensive linemen saw time. Nobody really had a particularly good game, hit the quarterback, as you said. So they're really looking for someone to emerge. A few young players saw time. Jelani Hamilton played a bit at the end. Tyrese McCord saw a lot of snaps. Earl Moore, the defensive tackle from Tampa Hillsborough. So ideally, some of these young guys will start making plays because it's beginning to appear that these older players are really just guys, and the best we can hope for is that they're solid. It's spectacular.
I was speaking to another Miami Hurricane friend of mine the other day about the game, and I mentioned it's nice to see some offensive explosion back from the Canes. You're used to them with big plays with Michael Irvin and Lamar Thomas and everybody back in the day, and certainly the running back being a vital part of the offense, the way that Duke Johnson was on Saturday. But the defense, when I think about Miami Hurricane football, I think about defense. I think about nasty guys over there playing the linebacker spot, being, the Darth Vader music coming on when they're out on the field. Overall, the perspective, would Miami Hurricane fans rather have that nasty defense that's missing right now and give up some of the offensive explosion, or are they okay with having some 41-32 shootouts or some high-scoring games like that?
Whatever it takes to win. Miami had one of the best defenses of the decade. In 2003, they had Jonathan Vilma, DJ Williams, Sean Taylor, Vince Wilfork, Andrew Roll, Kelly Jennings, all first-rounders, Roger McIntyre, second-rounder, all in the same defense. And they weren't able to get over the hump because Brock Berlin, who's very well known in Gainesville, struggled quite a bit. So they'll take whatever will get them the W. If they have to win it like they won it against Boston College, they'll certainly take that. But there's no question that people are yearning for the day where our front four could get pressure without having a blitz. That's never been Miami's MO, to bring a lot of pressure from the linebackers. So we've really been waiting for that to happen, and it hasn't. And the hope is that these players that Al Golden has recruited in the last 2 years will become that. But they didn't really show necessarily a ton of flashes on Saturday. So the young DBs played well. Deion Bush played basically starters minutes at safety. Tracy Howard, the five-star cornerback, played quite a bit. So there's some promise there in the secondary, but we're still waiting to see those flashes from the young defensive linemen.
I think one of the things that make a good team great and a great team exceptional is turnover margin. Miami won the turnover margin battle. I believe they were +2, including a pick 6 by Denzel Perriman. When Miami was great, they scored a lot on defense and special teams, so it was at least nice to see in game number 1 out of the box against a conference opponent a score by somebody other than the offense.
You know, someone did a study on that 2001 Miami Hurricanes team, which won the national championship, and I think they would have won like 8 or 9 games without the offense even scoring a touchdown. Just with the defense and special teams, they scored so often. But you're right. That was the most positive sign out of the defense was the fact that they were generating turnovers. That was a huge problem last year. They're close to last in the nation. So that was definitely a huge step forward. The other big issue, third downs, wasn't really corrected. There were a few big third down conversions for BC. So the next step will be to be better on third down. They're already a good defense in the red zone. They were last year, and they're showing signs that they're making plays as far as turnovers. So what's really going to be key against Kansas State is can they win third down? Because that was a huge factor in the Kansas State game last year with Colin Klein converting some huge third downs.
Now, as Miami comes back from a victory up in Boston College there, they have to turn their attention to going on the road again against a K-State team that gave them all they could handle last year. And certainly going on the road can be difficult with a young team. What is the preparation focus been about this week in terms of looking ahead at K-State and also making some adjustments and some corrections from that football game on Saturday against Boston College?
Well, just as far as adjusting from the game on Saturday, like I said, third down is going to be key. And you could go all the way back to last year's Kansas State game. Colin Klein, who's the quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12, great running quarterback, really hurt the Canes last year. So the focus is certainly on stopping him. As far as offensively, I think they're looking very good as far as matching up with a Kansas State defense. It wasn't a strong unit last year. It doesn't project as a particularly strong unit this year. And we're probably looking at another shootout. I don't know if it'll be as high scoring as the Boston College game. Kansas State, when they are having success on offense, likes to control the ball, so it might not be the high point totals. But I think it's certainly going to be a game where both offenses have success. And the focus for Miami is winning those key third downs, winning the turnover battle, and making those 50-50 plays because it is shaping up to be a very good, very close game.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Sports Fix. Final question for you, and I got to ask you about the young man in particular, Duke Johnson. Tremendous performance in his debut there, 135 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, only 7 carries for him. I'm not a football coach, but, I would have to venture to guess that the game plan, or at least part of the game plan, is going to be to get him more touches of the football on offense.
Yeah, and as more and more touches, they just want to make sure they're effective touches. He didn't run the ball very much in the Boston College game, but when he did, he went 50 yards a couple times. So it's going to be effective touches, getting the ball in space. I think you'll see more of him as a receiver. They used him as a receiver in the Boston College game. The ball didn't necessarily go his way, but that's certainly in the offense. He's still going to be returning, and certainly he's going to factor in. I had one of the Hurricane coaches, I spoke to him in the summer after Duke Johnson had signed, and he actually compared Duke Johnson to Barry Sanders. He said he could be Miami's Barry Sanders. And from talking to coaches, they're not ones to give out praise like fans give out praise. They're usually a little more reserved. So you saw a little bit of that potential in this first game. It's hard to do better than the 19 yards of carry and 2 touchdowns. So everybody's really excited to see what he can do on Saturday.
Real quick, before we let you go, we're running out of time, but I got to get you to speak highly about my boy Jedd Fisch. A lot of discontent over the years with Patrick Nix and Mark Whipple at the offensive coordinator spot. How do Miami Hurricane fans feel about the year and one game that Jedd Fisch has under his belt?
I think they're really excited and different than what they thought. They thought he'd be kind of like a brainiac trying to outsmart himself, but he's making sure that these players stay within themselves. He's he's coaching very efficiently. Ja'Cory had a great year last year, very efficient, cut down his turnovers. And what we saw from Morris, same thing. Stayed within the offense, didn't try to do too much. So I think everybody's pleasantly surprised that for a guy who didn't play football and kind of had the reputation as a brainiac, he's really he's dialing it down and he's doing what it takes to win rather than to show everybody how smart he is.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, man, joins us each and every Thursday here on the Sports Fix. Danny, really appreciate your time, my friend. Enjoy the game. Noon kickoff out there in Kansas, and we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Take it easy, guys.
Appreciate it. Danny Money, CanesInsight.com. Coming up next, we turn our attention to Tallahassee. find out how the Noles are doing after their big win over Murray State.